Hello all. For this no red ink video, we're looking at identifying sentences and fragments, and we are specifically looking at sentences and fragments, that, which, and especially. So I'm going to go ahead and think through a whole bunch of these examples for you, and I'm taking notes up here in my little gray cheat sheet so we can keep track of the rules that we've come across. So I'm going to take each sentence separately because even if only one of them is a fragment, we're going to have to put fragment for the whole thing. So after the hike, Hermione Granger was thinking. This is going to be a full sentence. After the hike by itself doesn't work, but because it's connected to Hermione Granger was thinking, we know that's a full sentence. That the path may have been lined with poison oak. We don't know where that's coming from. If something starts with that and just goes straight into the idea, no transition, no explanation, you can be pretty sure that that is a fragment. So I'm going to go ahead and put in our cheat sheet that that is generally a fragment. Julia Sells begged her neighbor to lend her platform shoes. Not something I'd ever do, but definitely a complete sentence. Now we've got which were the hottest new fad at the disco club. Now, which can be tricky. If which is part of a question, then it is generally a complete sentence. But if which is part of a sentence, it is generally a fragment. So we've got a period at the end and not a question mark. I'm going to go ahead and say fragment. All right, Cedric Diggory sat frozen at his computer screen. Pretty straightforward. We've got Cedric Diggory as our noun. We've got sat as our verb. Which password had he used for his Facebook account? Now we've got our question mark at the end, and because it's part of a question, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a full sentence. That the rest of Luna Lovegood's evening would be spent playing pinball. Again, we start off with that. We don't have any sort of transition material. I'm going to go ahead and put that as a fragment. Katniss Everdeen's hamster spends all day nibbling on carrots. That makes sense. That is its favorite pastime. Now, this gets a little tricky. We've got a verb following that. That is. So now that is acting as the subject. So I'm going to put on our sheet that is generally becomes a complete sentence. All right, concerned, the clerk stared at Rafiki's groceries. So by itself, concerned would not work, but because it's attached to the clerk stared at Rafiki's groceries, that one is good to go. Next, we have especially because she noticed that the cart only contained chocolate bars. Now, especially can be a little tricky. If especially is on its own, then it's a fragment. If especially is linked to another idea, then it becomes a complete sentence. So especially because she noticed that the cart only contained chocolate bars, we've only really got one thought in there. So I'm going to say that that one is a fragment. Hagrid bought 5 bus tokens from the clerk. That is pretty straightforward. Hagrid is our subject, bought is our verb. Let's take a look at our second sentence, which was a better deal than buying one at a time. So we've got a which. So if I look at our 2 rules for which, when which is part of a question, it's a complete sentence. But when which is part of a sentence, it's just a fragment. So we have a period at the end, not a question mark. Therefore, I'm going to declare this is a fragment. I hope that this has been helpful for you all. If you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Remind.